Hey guys, Cravone here with another guide. Today's going to be a Helwyr solo melee guide. It's going to be aimed at both solo and group players, and it's going to be aimed at people who have never done it before and people who are struggling to stay a full hour, because you can stay a full hour. The requirements are 80 mage to get into the room, and the recommendations are melee, and this is going to be a melee guide. Overloads, level 90 plus defense and HP. Now this is important because Helwyr is a very damage orientated boss, and also protect / deflect from melee is a requirement to being able to do this boss well. As for gear, you can use mage. I don't recommend doing it because you need to use resonance in one of the abilities, but you need ads taken out. So I would recommend mage if you're grouping with someone. But as for melee gear, lance or a scythe. Other than that, any two-hander would be okay, like a Zaros Godsword, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, would be fine. But I would not recommend dual wield, because you need an amount of AoE, and you need Hurricane and Quake specifically. In terms of what you should bring in your bag, so first of all, with a familiar, either take a combat familiar or a beast of burden. For healing, you're going to want to take food and or brews. I find brews work quite well here because a lot of what you take isn't enough to one-shot you, but you do take quite a bit of damage. However, you might not need to heal at all because there is a strategy using resonance. Now, you will definitely need a shield switch for resonance. Now, if you don't know what resonance is, I'll explain that in a second. But you need a shield. Any shield will do as long as you can use resonance with it. So, that's basically any shield. Obviously, take Enhanced Excalibur if you have it. Overloads are an absolute must here. So are prayer renewal potions or some sort of prayer restore. As for auras, I highly recommend the Vampirism aura. Either that or penance or reverence, whichever you have available. For armor, I'd recommend level 80 plus armor, and yeah, level 80 plus armor for solo. For groups, level 70 plus armor. Now, the biggest problem I find people have with Helwyr, and why they think Helwyr is so hard, when in actual fact Helwyr isn't actually that difficult. And it's because a lot of people say it's difficult because they don't use enough defensive abilities. So I'm gonna very quickly run down the 3 most important ones and some other optional abilities you can use. So the first is Devotion. Now, if you're protecting from melee and you hit Devotion, every single melee hit you take for the next 10 or so seconds will hit for 1 damage instead of their normal value. And this can be very, very useful against some of Helwyr's abilities, particularly like the Rampage thing he does, but also the Cleave if you're not able to get out of the way. The second ability is Freedom. Now, most people will know about Freedom. They'll know about it being a way to remove stuns. That is one application of it. It's not the application you're going to be using in Helwyr. You want to use Freedom to remove bleeds, which it does. But you specifically want to use it after a particular ability. I'll go into that in a second. Now, the third defensive ability that's essential is Resonance. Now, Resonance requires a shield, which is why you're taking a shield with you. Resonance, when you activate it, the next hit of damage will heal you instead of doing damage. And that can be very, very powerful on this boss. Again, I'll go into when you should use that in a second. Now, a quick disclaimer. The way I'm going to explain this boss, I'm not using the official names of abilities, nor am I using a numbering system that's official. So, I'm going to explain this in that he has 4 abilities, and he uses them in a sequence. So first of all, he'll use mushrooms. Now, as an explanation, I tend to group them as a group of 4 abilities, but I start with the Cleave when I think of abilities. Like I think 1, 2, 3, 4, Cleave, Rampage, Wolves, Mushrooms. When you enter the room, he will use mushrooms and then start his normal rotation. 3 basic attacks after mushrooms, he will use Cleave. Now, what Cleave does is it takes about a second. He'll raise up off his front legs, and when he lands, he will hit you for an incredibly high amount of melee damage. Now, this is blocked with Protect from Melee. So it won't do too much damage if you're protecting from melee. It also applies 1 bleed. Now, again to bleeds with the next ability. The way you deal with this Cleave attack is the first and best option is to equip your shield beforehand, like the attack beforehand. Use Resonance, because then the Cleave will heal you. You'll still get hit with the bleed, so bear that in mind. Now, if you want to really maximize the healing you take, you can turn your Protect from Melee off just before he hits you, and if you've got Resonance, this will heal you for about 3,500. But this can be a bit risky. I would recommend get a few kills, get safe with the boss before you try this. But this trick is the secret to staying for a full hour at Helwyr, is turn off your melee protect prayer and then use Resonance. Obviously you want to turn protect from melee back on after that and equip your main weapon. You don't need an offhand, by the way, you just need the shield for this. Now, the second possible way of dealing with this is you could use Devotion. I don't recommend ever using Devotion on the Cleave, for the simple fact that there's an ability, the next ability I'm going to cover is a better choice to use Devotion on, because Devotion has quite a long cooldown. Now, the third and final option for you to deal with this ability is to run out of range of it, and this is important to know when he's about to do it, because then you can start moving before he actually starts charging it. If you start moving like when he starts charging it, it's too late. You're going to get hit. Unless you run through him, which is a possibility, so bear that in mind. The second ability I'm going to cover is Rampage, well, what I call Rampage. Now, Rampage, he will jump on a random person in your group, or if you're soloing, he will always jump onto you, and he will start jumping around in a circle for a couple seconds. Now, whilst he does that, you will take damage. You will take damage whilst you're in proximity of him, and you'll take continuous damage. Now, each hit of this continuous damage will stack up a bleed that increases each time you get hit by it. And it's a long bleed. It is a really long bleed. So, the best way to deal with this ability is, like, he uses it quite soon after the Cleave. You want to have Devotion beforehand or during it. Like, you want to be using Devotion as your primary way of avoiding the damage. The second option is, if you don't have Devotion, just run out of the range. You will get hit with a few ticks, but you will be able to get out of range quite quickly. Now, the most important thing about this ability, wait until he stops moving around in a circle and then hit Freedom. Do not use Freedom on anything else in this boss, because Freedom is on an exact cooldown with this ability. So if you use Freedom for this ability, you'll be able to use it each time he uses this ability, but no, like, on nothing else. That you'll only be able to use Freedom on that ability, and it's crucial because the bleeds really add up. And if you haven't cleared the bleed, you cannot use Resonance on Cleave, because Resonance will heal the bleed and not the Cleave. so you'll still get hit with the Cleave. Another quick note is, if you do want to use Berserk on this boss, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use Devotion on the Berserk, you want to use Devotion on the rampage that the boss does, and then use Berserk whilst he's doing it. That's the best time to do it, and that will help you avoid taking additional damage from any of his... Well, he's basically got 2 big damage dealing abilities, the first 2. The other 2 abilities don't do much direct damage, so that's a good period of time to use Berserk. Now, the third ability he'll use is he'll call to the sky and summon 3 wolves. That's it. Now, the ramifications of these wolves, they don't do too much damage. The ramification is with using Resonance on the Cleave. You need to have these wolves completely killed to be able to use Resonance, because otherwise, like with the bleeds, the wolf hit will be the one that hits the Resonance and not the Cleave. So, like, these are sort of checkboxes if you want to use Resonance, and Resonance is basically the secret to staying an hour. Like, you can do Helwyr foodless if you use Resonance properly. So, if you're melee, I recommend using Hurricane and Quake, and by then both of the all 3 of the wolves should be dead. If you're using Berserk in the second attack, then just Hurricane should do. You'll probably only have the chance of using Hurricane in that case. Now, the 4th and final ability is the one you'll see straight from the start. He will spawn 3 mushrooms randomly around the room. They will do constant damage, slow, and stun you if you stand in them. Now, you don't want to be using Freedom to clear the stun either. But if you have to, you might have to do that. If you use the Anticipation ability beforehand, that should avoid you getting stunned if one spawns on top of you. But basically, the best way to deal with this is just walk out of the AoE. Don't stand in the AoE. There's no reason to stand in it. Be careful if you're using Surge or Escape to avoid it as well, because those can jump you into another mushroom, so be careful. The way these abilities sync up, there's as many as 6 at any one time that are on the ground, but they do start wearing off after a while. So now that I've covered all the basic abilities, I'm actually going to narrate through a kill. So we've just got 1 kill and we're moving into the next kill. So he normally spawns in the middle. Just waiting for him to spawn. Also, I'm typing in chat. You shouldn't type in chat when you're just learning this boss. So, first of all, I'm actually quite late putting melee protect on. So he uses Cleave, and I avoid it. I should mention he already uses mushrooms. Now, here is his rampage attack. I use Devotion to avoid most of the damage, and then right after I use Freedom to clear the bleeds. Now I'm looking for his next ability, which is Wolves. There we are, he's just spawned them. Now he uses his abilities quite quickly, as you can see. Now that the Wolves have grouped up, I Hurricane, I Quake. I'm sure there's no more left because I only hit 1 splash with Quake. And now I use my Shield Switch and Resonance as soon as he starts cleaving. And so because I took off my Protect from melee, I managed to heal for more. Now, I didn't have Devotion back up, so I had to move away from his rampage. I need to catch up with commentating this. Spawn some more wolves. I'm using AoEs to clear them again. Also, Pulverize is a good ultimate to use if you're new to this boss, because it reduces his damage. He's about to Cleave again now, because that's 3 basic attacks. So I used Devotion this time, I was basically full health, so I didn't want to take my damage off the boss, so I used Devotion instead of Resonance. I only take 1 tick of the Rampage, so I just run into the corner and freedom. Now, I've got a potential problem. I'm in a corner and I could get trapped in a corner, so I'm actually ready to surge out. So yeah, I'm a bit trapped here. I don't have much room to move around. So he's about to cleave again. And I use Resonance for that, turning my prayer off and then back on again. Now he's gonna rampage, and I am gonna take quite a bit of damage off this. Luckily, I'm able to get into the corner quite quickly. This is something else that's good practice. You should practice having auto retaliate off on this boss when you're practicing the boss, and maybe when you're actually doing it in future. So I clear all the ads again. I actually move more central because I don't want to get trapped in the corner. I Resonance again, get another 3.3k heal. So far I've not used any kind of healing food or brews or anything. So I take 2 hits off the Rampage and I freed him the bleed. This, as you can see, he uses stuff very, very quickly and very rapidly. But you get, once you've had a few kills of this, you get into the swing of doing this boss. So you're used to how quick he uses abilities. So again, I Resonance another Cleave, another 3.3k heal, and this heal is so overpowered. Like, you're healing almost you're healing 1.5 sharks each 20 seconds basically. So as you can see, like, my standard strategy is to heal off the Cleave and then just run from the Rampage. And obviously AoE the wolves. To be honest, the mushrooms aren't really that big a problem. They're just annoying if they spawn on you. So yeah, that was the kill of Helwyr. I hope you've actually found that useful. Hope you found this guy useful. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye for now.